James Grisman. Terry Clark. Mark Linkenbeard.
Here.
John Collette. Norm Furterman. Don Folk. John Hanley. Marcus Maurer. Debbie May. Amanda Thompson. William Verdine.
We do have a forum. Could I have everyone stand for the pledge of allegiance?
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I assume everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes and status report from the previous meeting. Got any questions on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. No public comments on non-agenda items tonight.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Executive Director's report.
Yes, good evening. Just a couple of quick notes. Associated with the plat committee report is the subdivision plat for Innovation Grove secondary that was approved. You have a handout there in front of you that is a site plan for an agenda item. We'll call that out as we get closer. And you also have in front of you this evening the minutes from the ordinance committee that met on June the 17th, speaking about the agenda items here and then upcoming agenda items that we have in maybe next month or maybe even the month after. Also wanted to note that most of your microphones are turned off, and that's to resolve the feedback issue that we have been having. If you want to speak, please turn them on so that sound gets out onto the internet and through the microphone systems and so the general public can hear as well. But then once you're finished, please turn them back off to avoid that
Okay.
feedback issue that we have been having.
Okay.
We were lucky enough to have the head of IT with us here this evening, Scott Swan, to assist should we need him.
Okay. Sydney?
We had the ordinance committee meeting, which went really well. We talked about the historical preservation ordinance, and we also kind of approved the language for the floodplain ordinance that's coming up. And I did send that to DNR, and so the language has been approved by DNR and FEMA. So we're good to go on what we have, and so we will be at least introducing it next month. But that's where we are with that.
Okay. Any questions from anyone on the Plan Commission for staff? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion passes. The only item under the plat committee then would be Innovation Grove.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Not necessary for any kind of motion, just for our review.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions on that from anyone on the plan commission? Okay. So then we'll go to our first item on the agenda. New business, county rezonings, docket number 48, UZO number 10, 2025, 8049 Rosedale Road from an A1 to C1 neighborhood commercial district.
As indicated, the address is 8049 Rosedale Road, as well as an unassigned parcel. Properties are located on the southeast corner of Rio Grande Avenue and Rosedale Road. It's currently zoned A1 agricultural. The proposed zoning is C1 neighborhood commercial district for a convenience store with a gas station and food sales. This area is rural residential, but there is a mix of different zoning uses surrounding it. There's, of course, commercial to the north and to the west. The existing building located at 8049 Rosedale Road was used as a firehouse or center for the community. At this time, the petitioner is unsure the type of business that would be placed in the building. However, it will be under the C1 zoning. The proposed convenience store and gas station to be constructed north of the firehouse It is to be constructed north of the firehouse and will feature a restaurant with a drive-thru. Traffic volumes at Rosedale Road and Rio Grande Avenue create the possibility for and interest in commercial reuse of the property. Commercial uses are not uncharacteristic for this location. Just to the north is a commercial communications tower, a tavern, and a dollar store. Common concerns can be raised with this location, as have been with previous locations. Items such as trash, lighting, and landscaping may need to be addressed. The applicant is required to get a commercial road cut permit from the Vigo County Highway Department, which may include any of the following: a passing lane, passing blister, and an acceleration lane. As with any commercial development, hard surface parking will be required, stormwater and drainage plan will need to be approved, public water will be required, public sewer is not available, so health department approval of the commercial septic system is needed. We did, based upon our findings, offer a favorable recommendation with the following conditions: health department approval, as well as Vigo County engineering approvals.
Okay. Is the petitioner present? Anything you'd like to add to staff's report? Okay, any questions from the Plan Commission for the petitioner or for staff? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this issue? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Were you wanting to say something?
I got a question on that.
Come up to the mic so we can hear you.
My name's Leonard Stoltz, and I own property next to that Rosedale 84 road, and I'm wondering, I have no objection against them buildings there, but I want to know how you're going to drain the water away from my field down there, right next to it, okay? Because it's sloped down. There's a house right beside my field too, and when it gets very much water, the basement fills up. I know it fills up, okay, and they pump it. That's all right. You know, it's been there for years. But anyway, we can't handle no more water out there in my field. They put the family doctor in there, and that they got by with it, and they run that water down there, and it runs onto my property too, and that's ridiculous for that. There's a 300-acre field there that they could have run that water across that field. Okay, I don't want no more water running on my head. I got 9 acres there, and it's the lowest partial right in there. So that's the only thing I got against that deal. That'd be all right, you know, putting a filling station and a food joint there. That's fine. But hey, take care of the water some way from running it onto my piece of farm ground there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a county ordinance that would require them to retain any new water that they generate. If they hard surface, they'll have to do some type of underground storage. They can't discharge water off the property any more than it discharges today. So you should have that safeguard. They should not be able to get issued a building permit until those requirements are met.
Well, they shouldn't. They done the family doc, got that family store there, you know, and that's ridiculous for them to run it there.
Yeah, the county engineer should make sure that he safeguards you against that.
I talked to him about it.
Right.
Well, I mean, I didn't do much good. on the
Okay.
deal. So, but that's the reason I'm here.
Okay.
On that. I ain't against putting a filling station there.
Okay.
They need something right there like
Sure.
that. They've been there for years.
Yeah.
Different places.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, absolutely.
First off, Leonard and I's family, so it's not bad blood at all. He just wanted to be on the record, so. He does have a legitimate concern. The water does fill up on both sides of the street, and it has been worse since Family Dollar was there. So I don't know if anything comes from this meeting beyond that, but I'd like to see the water get cleaned up too. We had a meeting with the civil engineer this week, and he's aware of my concern even prior to Leonard and I speaking, because I was concerned about the water just being located there where the water does raise.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
So they're aware of it, and we talked about a couple different options, whether it be dry wells or whatever.
Right.
So
Okay.
just wanted to add that for the record.
Okay.
So,
And I think the county has recently tried to address some of the flooding issues on that corner. Mark might speak to that. There was, as you probably know, driving out there. Rose,
we live near one another.
sure, I live 2 miles east, so I'm aware of it. Rosedale Road was closed, and I know they put a new big squash pipe where we always have problems. Whether that'll solve the problem for those poor people that get flooded all the time, I don't know, but I think they're trying to address those flooding issues. But certainly whatever you develop should not add to that. Okay.
I will check with our city, or county engineer also and make sure that we are addressing those issues.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Any other questions from anyone on the plan commission? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Next item under new business county rezonings, docket number 49, UZO number 11, 2025, 1790 East Howard Avenue from an R1 to an A1 agricultural and rural residential district.
So the two properties are located on the dead-end street of East Howard Avenue, identified as 1790 East Howard Avenue. It's currently zoned R1 single-family residential in the proposed zoning A1 agricultural district versus the single-family home with a horse boarding facility. The area consists of farm ground and single-family homes to the west. The area does have sanitary sewer. Notices were sent to adjacent property owners within 1/2 mile of the address. Doing so satisfies Section 1N of the UZO. Barnyard animals will be permitted and are anticipated, as well as any other use as identified under Indiana Code 36741661. The property was previously used as a horse boarding facility until it lost its legal nonconforming use. The petitioner in 2024 purchased this property in hopes of continuing the horse boarding facility. Petitioner also purchased the 26.98 acre agricultural grounds to the south of the property from the original owner. That same acreage will be fenced for the horses. We offered a favorable recommendation on the rezoning request. We did not receive any remonstration on the petition.
Okay. Is the petitioner present? Anything you'd like to add to the staff's report?
No, I think that's about everything we want to do. We just want to continue what has been going on since, I believe, the late sixties.
Okay.
And we had an option to buy the house, buy the barn, and the 25 acres. Well, one or all. We bought all, looked at the zoning, and saw that it had never really been zoned for us. We just want to do things correctly.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone on the plan commission for staff or the petitioner? Anyone else like to speak to this issue? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next item under new business county rezonings, docket number 50, UZO number 12, 2025, 6620, 6686, 6700 South Carlisle from an R1 to a C3 regional commercial district.
The three properties, as indicated, are currently zoned R1 single-family residential. They're on the east side of South Carlisle Street, just south of the Speedway gas station for clarification. The proposed zoning is C3 Regional Commercial District for what was indicated to be a Dunkin' Donuts with a strip mall. The area is identified primarily as suburban residential, and the area is well-served with public utilities. Surrounding uses to the north is a C2, to the south is C1, south is also R1, west and east are R1. So the petitioner has requested rezoning to allow for the development of a strip mall that will include a donut shop with a drive-through. The existing home at 6700 South Carlisle Street will be demolished. The other lots were the sites of single-family homes that have been vacant for at least the last 5 years. This portion of Vigo County is a solidly developed and stable residential district. Commercial zonings are mostly absent at this location, with the exception of the service station to the north and the small corner lot at 6721 South Honey Creek Street. The nearest commercial zoning is the C3 Dollar Store, which was rezoned in 2021. Commercial rezoning has struggled in the past to find footing in this area. In 2017, the APC did act to uphold a district boundary line, halting the spread of commercial development further east into the residential neighborhoods. In October of 2018, the petitioner was denied a rezoning the property to C7. In both instances, rezoning would have permitted commercial intrusions into established residential neighborhoods. It's understandable then, with the lack of commercial presence, that certain demand exists in this area for the availability of goods and services. Related to this petition, the first item that stands out is the proximity to school and the safety related to school children and an increase in traffic. If traffic could be restricted or minimized on Carlisle, this could mitigate some of those concerns. Road cuts do exist along Carlisle. Common concerns can be raised with this location, as have been with previous locations. Items such as trash lighting and landscaping will need to be addressed. As with any commercial development, hard surface parking will be required, stormwater and drainage plan will need to be approved, public water and sewer will be required. You do have a handout there in front of you that is a site plan that was submitted to us, as well as elevations and a floor plan to give you an idea of what the building will approximately look like. We did offer a favorable recommendation with the following conditions. Of course, they'd have to combine the parcels into a single lot of use. Road cut permits and improvements to Highway 41 as required by NDOT, and commercial drive cut permits and engineering improvements along Carlisle as required by Vigo County Engineering.
Okay. Is the petitioner present? Anyone, no one here representing the petitioner, or is there? I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Is there anything you would like to add to this?
No, other than open for questions or concerns.
Okay.
Maybe willing to do just an entrance exit off 41 instead of coming into Carlisle, but,
Is there anyone on the planning commission that has any questions for the petitioner? No. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak to this issue?
Hi, my name is Kara Scott, and my husband Greg and I live on Gilchrist, which is pretty much right across the street. There's only a small empty lot between us and 41, right at that corner. That crossing at 41 is already pretty dangerous with no light. The cars, a lot of traffic comes through very fast on 41 there. So we've witnessed, being a straight view from there, a lot of accidents, pedestrians being hit. We've only been there 3 years and we've seen several accidents there. And we're just concerned with an increase of cross traffic with people from the east side of 41 to get to a commercial establishment there. Also, we bought our house there because it wasn't right by any commercial. The light pollution, everything is less once we get past like the Speedway gas station. We just have several concerns between an increase in traffic, possible increase of crime just because of more people who don't live there being within a block or so, or of where our house is. The light pollution. There's just a few concerns that we have about
Okay.
it.
All right.
Thank you. Any questions?
Anyone else like to speak to this issue? Any other questions or discussion from the planning commission? Not, I'll entertain a motion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, under new business, City County General Ordinance, docket number 51, General Ordinance number 2, 2025, Historic Preservation.
General Ordinance Number 2, 2025 is an amendment to the Terre Haute City Code establishing a Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Terre Haute. The commission shall consist of 7 voting members appointed by the mayor who are residents of the city and are interested in the preservation and development of the historic areas. The commission is responsible for conducting a survey to identify historic buildings, sites, and structures located within the city. Based on its survey, the commission shall then submit a map describing the boundaries of a historic district or districts to the council. The commission will issue a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of any building, the moving of any building, and for any new construction of a principal building or accessory building or structure subject to view from a public way. The commission could also require certificates of appropriateness for changing the exterior appearance of historic buildings, including color, construction of changes in walls and fences, and a change and the exterior appearance of non-historic buildings subject to view from public way, including color. The ordinance committee did meet on 6/17/2025 in the area planning department office. There was open discussion about general ordinance number 2, 2025. Comments from the committee included, comments that the ordinance would work better with a two-step approach and with the survey conducted before establishing the ordinance. They were concerned with instituting such strict regulations without funding in place to help homeowners meet requirements. The committee was also concerned with imposing requirements on people who already own homes that would be required to abide by the regulations. The consensus is that the committee is unfavorable to the ordinance as it is written, with one favorable committee member. There is no existing procedure for historic districts in the city at this time. The genesis for this ordinance is the city attorney. The ordinance was derived from that of another community in Indiana. The recommendation from the committee is that, while the idea is not entirely unfavorable to all members, it is unfavorable as it is written.
Thank you. Is the petitioner or somebody that would like to go through the ordinance here?
Good evening, members of the Area Planning Commission. My name is Todd Nation. I'm the president of the Terre Haute City Council, and I am one of 5 Terre Haute City Council members who is bringing forward this piece of legislation. What you have before you is a mirror of not only the legislation in the community that we modeled it off of, but it is a mirror of state code. When I, as a city council person, when I read a recommendation from the Vigo Area Planning Commission that has something to do with an historic neighborhood, there is language in that that says, hey, look, we value historic preservation. We think that it's something that we should be doing. It's language. They are words. This takes those words and actually puts a framework in place where there can be action taken on that. Every other community of our size and many smaller communities in the state of Indiana have exactly this same language in place. It mirrors state code. It is deliberately mirroring state code so that it can be legally defensible. I ask for your consideration of this. I think there are other people who want to speak generally in favor of it, and I will make myself available afterwards if anybody wants, or right now, if anybody wants to ask me specific questions about it, I'll try to answer them.
Anyone on the Plan Commission have any questions for Mr. Nation?
I do. Can you talk about the color of non-historical preserved buildings? Why are you insisting on the other colors being color standard in that language?
I share your concern with any mention of color in this, and I don't think that it's the intention of the Terre Haute City Council, and I don't think it will be the intention of the commission when it's formed to wade into telling people what color they can and can't paint their houses. That's not the goal here. The reason that that language is in there is because we have been counseled to mirror what's in the state code, and the state code has that language in it. If I understood your question, it concerns non-historic homes, and I don't think that there's going to be any kind of advice or mandate or anything that would involve.
It's in the language. It's there.
Okay, so what is in the ordinance is there because we need to get this done, we need to pass what's in the Indiana code. Then a commission is formed. The commission then adopts local rules, that their own version of the rules, drawing from what's in that enabling legislation which you have before you. Think of it as a palette from which they can choose. And I am very confident that 7 people chosen by the mayor of Terre Haute and maybe approved by the city council will not be electing to tell people who own non-historic homes in historic neighborhoods what color they can and can't paint their houses.
So that's a concern for sure. The language of having going outside the scope of a home or building be decided is age appropriate.
what you have before you is a mirror of state legislation that enables the commission to be formed and appointed and a process to begin so that we can actually do what we say we value in terms of protecting historic properties. This is the one tool that the state of Indiana gives us to do this, the one. So if we want to actually do this, and I will tell you that there are people on the city council, myself and 4 others, who have co-sponsored this legislation. There are people who are listening to our constituents and trying to take action on this and make it so. It's not being proposed for any place but the city of Terre Haute.
Mr. President, could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Mr. Nation, thanks for being here. My question would be, so this commission could designate any place within the city limits a historic district, and then these rules would apply?
A version of those rules that this commission that gets appointed, that we don't know who those people are going to be or anything about them, they're mayoral appointees, that commission would consider designating historic districts and individual historic sites, yes. The way that it would likely start is they would designate City Hall. They would designate Ray Park, the Ray Park Pavilion. They would designate the Collett Park Pavilion, properties that are owned by the city of Terre Haute. And that's based on the experience in other municipalities that have started these. That's the way that they get their feet wet, the way that the process begins. They would also look at National Register Historic Districts. In Terre Haute, there are currently National Register Historic Districts for Farrington's Grove, Collett Park, 12 Points, Downtown, and Ohio Boulevard. I don't think there are any others, but I may be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's a complete list. Just because they're National Register Historic Districts does not mean that they will be locally designated, but they are the most likely places to be locally designated. There are also individual sites like when we were kids, it was called the GAR Memorial Hall. I think now it's Kessler Law, the oldest commercial building in Terre Haute, across from the courthouse to the south, the one with the big pillars. If the owners of that building thought, okay, I want to have this designated locally, then they could petition to have that individual property designated as a local historic district, a local historic site.
Could the city, designate City Hall as a historic site without going through this process? Without doing this much?
The City Hall is already designated as a National Register Historic Site. So they have applied for National Register designation, and they've gotten it. National Register designation says this is an important place, but it does not confer any kind of protection on it. And it doesn't put any process in place for considering what alterations to that building might look like. I don't know how closely you've looked at City Hall, but there's in the last couple of decades, there's an exoskeleton of electrical conduit running on the outside of that building. Maybe you haven't noticed that. I have. That is the kind of thing that a commission like this would talk about. All right, so what are the alternatives to that? And it's not in the sense that they would proactively be saying, hey, look, you've got to design that out. It's when maintenance comes, when projects that rehabilitate or expand a facility come forward, then that's when the conversations happen. Nobody's going to come and start telling people what they have to do with property just based on the fact that it's an historic district or been designated historic.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Sure.
If I own a piece of ground in the city, could the city come along with this committee and deem that particular acreage historic area and take the rights away from the person that owns the property?
I don't know how that would happen.
Well, it says in here they can do it by land. If anything viewing by the public from the public roads.
I would defer to, well, in this case, the Planning Commission's counsel. Do you have an attorney?
Well, we just follow the zoning.
Is that a yes or no question? Answer. Do you have an attorney?
I think I can answer your question. It's written in there and it can. It can be streetscapes, it can be a sign in your yard, it can be a mailbox, a bird box. You've mentioned a couple times that the ordinance is drafted based on the state statute. My guess is, and I could be completely wrong, this is everything that the state would allow.
It is.
And you're suggesting maybe that by virtue of a mayor's appointment of a less aggressive staff, we may not implement all this. And I can't believe that the state would not allow you to draft something that is way less restrictive than this. There's no way that they're demanding that you incorporate every possibility that they might allow in a local ordinance. And to suggest that because other communities our size do this doesn't mean a whole lot to me. If every other community our size had malaria, I would suggest that we probably not infect everybody in Vigo County, so I don't think that's a very good argument. My feeling is this is another obstruction to development. And it gives complete control over the entire city for any structures under 50 years of age, which would include North and South High School, probably 90% of the city of Terre Haute. So you're going to give complete control to jurisdiction to an unelected, appointed by the mayor, 7-member commission, which then puts that control in the city council's lap. I myself don't live in the city, have a business in the city, don't have any interest in the city council or a 7-member committee appointed by the current mayor to have any say as to what I do if I want to build an addition onto my business. I don't want, and my business is over 50 years old. I mean, I appreciate history. I'm a student of history, and I understand your intent. You live in a historic neighborhood, and I understand that. I think this is a terrible ordinance for the city of Terre Haute.
This is a best practice to affect the actual historic preservation of our resources. There is, as members of I served on the Area Planning Commission myself for a number of years, but it's been a while, and looking at this group, there are only a few of you who I served with, John and Norm among them. As part of your due diligence, you probably looked at the ordinances of other peer communities and around Indiana. And when we talked about this before, a number of years ago, the only 2 communities who had not, in cities in the state of Indiana, who had not availed themselves of this tool, the only tool provided by the state of Indiana to actually try to help with historic preservation in the community, the only 2 communities cities who had not done this were ourselves and Gary, Indiana. Gary has since adopted an historic district preservation ordinance. If you look at their ordinance the ordinances of West Lafayette, Bloomington, Attica. It just goes on and on. Cities, all of our peer cities of our size are bigger, and then the smaller communities too, many of them who have historic resources like ours, they all have historic district preservation ordinances in place. They all started by adopting this language and then moving from there. I get it. When I read it, I see things in there that make me blanch. I have pushed back and said, well, you know, can't we just do this, our own version of this that is edited down, that's somehow tailored for Terre Haute? And the answer, the best practice is you adopt what's in state code, and then there is a set of local rules that is adopted that mirrors what the city of Terre Haute can do, wants to do, will do. So that's how it works. It's not, you're not saying by giving a non-binding recommendation to the city council that of yes or no, you're not saying, yes, we want to do everything that's in this enabling legislation, or no, we stand against everything that's in this enabling legislation. And I know you don't want to listen to me lecture you. If nobody else has any questions, I will stand aside and let some of the other people present.
Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
I may have one. So I understand the state statute, and I'll echo John. I think you can go lesser. So I'll mention my concern. I guess it's less of a question. I think our previous historic surveys from 1980, if I'm not incorrect, so that puts it about 45 years old, 5 years shy of historic status. That's a concern to me in our office because we'll be dealing with the permits on this side. There's 45 years worth of properties that we don't know if they're historic or not, and we would be looking to take an action before we know the consequences. I was one that was in favor of kind of a two-step process. If there's a way that we could get the commission in place and get the survey going so that we can find what the impacts would be before we enforce these, or that commission could even form the local recommendations for rules. This is a very broad, very far-reaching ordinance, and once it's in place, it's in place. We don't know what that commission's going to say Terre Haute's local rules are. From our office's viewpoint, we struggle with safe housing, let alone conserving any. We're condemning houses that are unsafe to live in, that people can't maintain as it is, and I do appreciate history and I want to keep it alive. I think it would be wise to find the data before we make a decision, is my opinion.
Marcus, I hear you, and I'm very familiar with the interim report, which was completed in, I think, 1981, and my dad helped with it. I know the people who did it back 40-something years ago. You're right that needs to be updated, and it's needed to be updated for a long time. What the recommendation is to form the commission and have their first act be to commission a new, or to order an update of this interim report. Whether it's done before or after the commission is formed, it's going to have the same, we're going to see the same data. And what you can expect is, as you leaf through that now, nearly 45-year-old report, you'll see the resources that we identify already as historic. Yes, there are other things that have aged since then, but the core of our historic resources are reflected in that report from 1980. So I don't really think that things are going to change that much they will change somewhat. Downtown, the historic districts that were designated back then, and it was designated as two because there's a big chunk out of the middle that was that it was gone when they already in the early 80s when they were doing the first survey. That downtown multi-use resource area will change significantly from what it was back then, the boundaries of it, the resources that are left within it. You'll see similar changes too with some of the other districts that were identified back then. Some of those districts were identified actually as local resource areas. Others were, places that had a significant concentration of resources, but many of them don't exist anymore. And I would argue that one of the reasons that they don't exist anymore and that things have changed significantly in many of these districts which were identified over 40 years ago is because we didn't have protections in place. Other communities throughout the state also have interim reports. You may have seen them for other counties, other cities. I have. And I know that in many cases, those interim reports are updated every decade at the most. We are behind. And this is one way, this whole process that's being proposed is a means the only means, really, that's offered by the state for us to do more than just talk about it as we approve the next project and keep moving forward. I'll stop. I'll let the next person go. And if anybody else wants to ask me any questions afterwards.
I have an
I'm
additional
happy.
question.
Oh, sure.
Again, bringing back the ground in the city, can this committee go and say that ground is a historic district even though there's nothing on it? And if so, what could the owner do?
I would defer to your attorney to get a straight answer to that question, because the honest answer is I don't know. The way I understand this is it's about the built environment. And you're asking about land that doesn't have anything built on it, if I understand your question correctly.
Yeah, but it says here, if they do build on it, they have to do it subject to the public right-of-way, public way, the way it looks.
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else for Mr. Nation? We can hear from somebody
you.
else if you want to. Anyone else like to speak to this issue?
My name is Carrie Youssef. I live in Farrington's Grove, and I'm the president of Farrington's Grove Historical District, Inc., which is an all-volunteer nonprofit neighborhood association. I'm also one of the founding members of the Historic Neighborhood Coalition of Terre Haute. And I am showing some slides this evening that were put together by a neighbor who could not be here. And I had a 2-minute thing that I wanted to walk you through, but after hearing your questions, I'm gonna just change directions. The first thing I would sort of repeat is what Councilperson Nation said, that for 40 years, the city has done nothing. And I'd like to walk you through the downtown corridor briefly, and then some of the sites all over the city that have been lost. And again, this has all been put together by Nathan Hawkins. So this is gonna be an aerial view of 1958, and you're gonna see what happens to the city. You know this already intuitively, but it's very different when you see it visually. So you can see all of the historic buildings in 1958. Of course, this is the downtown corridor only. 1980, they start to disappear. 2000, and this year. There's a complete, almost 3/4 of the building have been demolished. And in many cases, they've been demolished for parking lots, some gravel parking lots, or new construction, or they've been left vacant. I have examples, right? Again, these are all images from the Vigo County Archives. So there's been losses, of course, in Farrington's Grove, which is the oldest neighborhood in Terre Haute. So you can see this house on South 8th, and you probably know this site on South 8th. Now it's just grass, and it's the back of, I think that's Coach's Corner. You can see an example on South 7th. This house still exists, but because there was no preservation ordinance, it's been radically altered, right? All the windows from the upper roof were removed, the beautiful curve, that's all been sided over, and windows have been removed, so it looks very different. There's, of course, losses downtown. This is the Chancellor building that was just demolished in 2021, and we have a gravel parking lot in its place. This is the Central Christian Church, right? And that's now a parking lot for ISU. Again, Wabash, some of you might remember these, or you also remember what stands there now. This is only downtown. There are hundreds of buildings all across the city that have been destroyed, and I have a couple other examples, right? This is the Thompson School, demolished in the 80s. This is what it is now. This is a house. It was built by a runaway slave, a key monument to both our history and national history, and it's just an empty field right now. And of course, there are so many more historic resources that need protection, and I just pulled a couple. You probably all know this site downtown. This is some of the commercial storefronts that could use protection. This is the last fragment of what was a block that was intact 15 years ago, could also use protection. You know this site would be great to have protection. I pulled a bunch, Nathan pulled a bunch of images from the Brewery District, all historic buildings that could use protection. I'm not gonna restate some of the things that Councilperson Nation said, right? Terre Haute needs a historic preservation ordinance for a variety of reasons. We have let 40 years of inattention and destruction destroy much of our cultural history and the integrity of our city and its landscapes. And while I personally represent Farrington's Grove is not the only neighborhood to suffer. As I've shown you, the National Register of Historic Places codes historic as, quote, at least 50 years, which you all know. That includes Collett Park, Edgewood Grove, Ohio Boulevard, Woodridge. These are just some of the historic neighborhoods that need protection. I would also counter some of your questions and information. Currently we only have one tool, code, right? This ordinance would allow us to address design. They are totally two different things. Second, color is only one possibility, and most likely it would not be included under a local commission. Second, the ordinance clearly says it is major external revisions. It is not maintenance. It is not a minor remodel. It has nothing to do with the inside. It is major external revisions, and it is not backdated. So I'm not in the process of remodeling my house. No one's gonna show up and tell me that I need to put in old windows when I've already put in new ones by the previous owner. So it's not backdated. And I think you're missing a key point, a point that is important for all of us who support the ordinance, is that it provides a place and multiple occasions for public comment. So you would have to have a forum where the public could voice its concern and the property owners could voice their concern. And again, we have nothing that provides that, unless it's zoning, and most of you serve on the zoning committees anyway. So again, I ask you to support General Ordinance 2, 2025. We need a historic preservation ordinance, and we are paying the price of not having one. Thank you.
Well, if you're not gonna use those, why are they in the ordinance? I mean, how can you, if you say you're probably not gonna use the color issue, but it's in the ordinance, so
I think Mr. Nation answered that much more elegantly. We are mirroring city code, or state code. And what the local commission decides to do is up to the local commission.
Yeah, but I'd say once we approve the ordinance, not us, the city council, like it is, I mean, there it is, it's there.
The ordinance only enables the other actions to follow. That's all.
That's what we're afraid of.
Yeah.
Follow. They wouldn't have to do anything unless they want, right? We could enable this.
Correct.
and then-
They could do
and then
nothing or
could
they could do everything.
Do whatever they wanted to do.
Right,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what my point is.
Police again.
There is by both the mayor who appoints them and also the city council who reviews decisions, and the public. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm simply voicing my
know.
support and the
Yeah.
support of my neighborhood and of the Historic Neighborhood Coalition.
I did notice on your slideshow that you didn't include all of the new structures downtown, and I would argue that had this ordinance been in place 40 or 50 years ago, maybe none of them would be there.
I mean, I can't read the past. I can barely predict the future, if at all. I would argue that historically, across the state, the data shows that historic preservation ordinance do not hinder development. They don't slow it down. They, in fact, stabilize neighborhoods, they increase property values, and they create a certain pride and stability and even tourism. So I guess I would counter, I can't predict the past, but.
Yeah, I would counter that I don't believe that.
Sure.
That I believe that had this restrictive of an ordinance been passed 40 years ago, the Terre Haute House would still be there dilapidated. You wouldn't have a federal courthouse. You wouldn't have a 500 Wabash. You wouldn't have a convention center. And I can go on and on and on.
You don't need to.
I know, because you know what they are. You purposely left them out of the slideshow or
I didn't
wherever.
leave them out. Those are buildings I
There were
don't
blank
consider
spots
of
on the-
value.
Well, I think the community as a whole considers them an extreme value.
Okay.
That's obviously my opinion.
Yes, of course.
Any other questions from the Plan Commission?
And this is just public comment. I'm not
I
an
know.
expert, so
I know.
I guess I would ask to be released.
Aren't you from the aren't you
Asked
from
to
the
be
Farrington
released.
Aren't you from the Farrington Grove, miss? Aren't you from the Farrington Grove?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. They tried to put a group together, an ordinance together for the Farrington Road. Isn't that right, Todd, just a few years ago?
Probably been more than a few, but we're getting old, Warren.
I know. Yeah.
We are getting old, John, and Norm.
Some of us look older than the others.
It's been nearly 20 years, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Boy, they're really historic now.
It was not long after I was first elected to the city council. I think that it was about 2005 or 2006, sometime in that time frame.
Yeah.
Does that sound
Probably
right?
about right,
That
yeah.
does sound right, yeah.
And I know that you're remembering that as a Farrington's Grove thing because I was a member of that group back then who were trying to get this done. It was exactly the same language and exactly the same enabling ordinance mirroring state code and exactly the same thing that was being proposed, and not just for Farrington's Grove, but for the
It
whole
was
city.
community-wide, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't community-wide.
No, it was community-wide.
was?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it
that's
was
my
the same.
point,
Yeah.
is that it was this same effort 20 years ago.
Right, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hope you guys are ready for a long talk.
Give us your name and address for our record.
Christopher Wolf. I live at 1139 South Center Street. You might know it as Judge Lewis's home. I don't know if you've ever seen it or been there or been by it.
Okay.
It is my favorite home in the neighborhood, and I just adore it. So, just part of my opinion too. If I was an out-of-towner and I was going to come stay downtown Terre Haute, the last place I would pick is that Holiday Inn where the Terre Haute house is. Right? It's whitewashed. It's boring. It feels like I'm in the south end of Terre Haute, to be honest, which I avoid also. And like a lot of my friends and peers and people like that, they enjoy history. Like they would much rather stay at an Airbnb, like one of mine on Center Street, versus at beautiful hotel. So, you know, that's just my opinion, right? And I understand you guys are all like, you know, business people and you got power and, you know, you're protecting your assets too, right? Which I'm trying to protect mine also. So,
It's booked nearly all the time.
what's that?
It's booked nearly all the time.
I agree, by a certain type of person, right? You know, not anybody with any kind of cultural history. Well, I can't say that for sure, but I just feel like it's the normal run-of-the-mill type of people. Hey, we're coming in town, we're just going to stay here, right? And again, it's just my opinion. It may be booked all the time, and I hope it is, because I do adore my downtown also, right? I want it to be prosperous, and people want to come and stay here and visit our expo center and all that stuff. I think it's great, right? It's just my opinion that I wouldn't stay in that POS. But what I really wanted to say today is, you know this new Terre Haute logo? Are you guys familiar with that? Okay, so maybe you should be, right? It's rolled out by the mayor. It's this like logo that everybody came up with. People voted on it, and it has some Terre Haute significance in it. And I watched this news reporter talk about it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I had to keep rewatching it because I really couldn't believe my ears. Here's what the reporter said. It's this Terre Haute logo, which if you don't know about it, it's kind of sad. You know, you probably should know about it because it's going to be on the Terre Haute website, and it's going to be on cars, supposedly, and marketing. The reporter says, this logo was designed with Terre Haute architectural history and culture in mind. Architectural history. So it sounds like we are kind of proud of something. I'm not sure. And then the mayor follows up with the next clip saying, this brand reflects who we are as a community, our character, our values, our vision for the future. Terre Haute architectural history, a vision for the future. Imagine that. And then the tagline is, meet us at the crossroads. And that's supposed to represent the signs of the historical intersection of these roads, which that's still there, right? But maybe not the historical buildings that are at that historical crossroads. And, you know, and I hope that there's a way that we can all come together and make this work for everybody in the room and the city and the town, to where we all can be happy, we can all still be prosperous, we can all still develop, and yet maybe maintain some of that architectural history that we're bragging about with our Terre Haute logo. That's all I have. Please consider it, and please help us figure out a way that we all can win from this. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Any other discussion by anyone on the Planning Commission? I'll entertain a motion. Pardon me? We're just recommending on their ordinance. Yeah, the city council passes it. Yeah, we make recommendations.
As currently written, I would offer an unfavorable recommendation.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.